In this video, we are going to learn how to create an eyeball in Illustrator and then animate it using After Effects. So let's just jump into it. As you can see that I've already made an artboard over here with the colors that I need for my eyeball, and I've also created a few layers because I'm going to store my work over there as we are going to import this work to After Effects. So we need those layers. So in order for us to create an eyeball, we're going to use the ellipse tool to create a circle and maybe settle with around 702. Yeah, that seems to be fine for me. And then I'll be aligning it like this. So once I have it aligned, what the next thing that I want to do is basically make it look a bit more realistic, make it look a bit more 3D. So I'll be adding a texture over here, kind of like a noise. So for doing that, I'll be copying the layer. So I'll just copy it using Control C and Control Shift V. After we have the layer right on top of it, what we're gonna do is we are going to switch the fill color to a stroke. And after we made it a stroke, I'm going to change the size of it maybe around 70. And I'm also going to make it an inline inside stroke. So after that, I'll be giving it the color that I have made over here. So for some reason it became a fill. Okay, yeah, because I'm using that. Anyway, so I am going to change it back to 70, maybe around 80 actually. All right, great. So once we get this, what we're gonna do next is going to go to Effect over here, and then we're gonna look for Diffuse Glow under Distort. So once we select that, we can add a distortion to our layer over here. So for the grain amount, I'm gonna set it to 8, that's fine. But over here, the grain amount is the thing that matters. Okay, I might also consider the graininess and the glow amount. I won't have any glow. Let's scratch that, and the clear amount would be around, let's say 7. So once that's done, hit OK, and we have this slight noise going on over here. I might change it depending on if it's worth it or not. So over here and the gradient, in the transparency, what we're gonna do is set it to multiply. Where is multiply? Okay, over here. And then what we're gonna do is go to effects, and then we're gonna use blur, Gaussian blur. And let's see, how much should we set it to? I'll set it around 25 maybe, and let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks great. So I'm gonna set it to 25, and as I can notice that the graininess isn't there yet, what I'll be doing is going back to Distort, Diffuse Glow, apply as a new effect, and I'm gonna increase the amount of graininess. Click OK. As now, as you can see that we have a better graininess over here right now. Grain right here. So we're just gonna stick to that. So once that is done, the next thing that we want to do is, at first, I will be locking this layer for the grain, so that we can take the solid again, the circle, and then copy Control C, and then Control Shift V to paste it on top at the same place. So once we do that, what I'm going to do now is basically copy it again, Control C and Control Shift V. And then I'll start moving it towards the right side so that I have an arc just like that, maybe a bit more or less. Okay, that should be good enough for me. And I'll also increase the size of this circle so that the arc isn't going to hit that face. So maybe around this looks fine to me. Now I'll be selecting both the layers using Shift, and once I do that, we'll be heading over here to get the shape builder tool, and then we're going to subtract this, I'm pressing Alt on my keyboard and subtract this as well. So it leaves us with this shape over here. So I'm gonna select that. I'm gonna paste this color using the eyedropper tool, and then we are going to do technically the same thing with this layer as well. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna apply the same effect over here. We're gonna go to distort, diffuse glow, and we're gonna set a graininess about that, and yeah, that should be good enough. So over here, when we have the shape ready with the grain, we are going to start using the blur on it. So we're gonna go Gaussian blur, and we're going to set the amount of blur that we want to set for it. So let's take a look at how much we should put on it. Maybe around 30 would be fine. Okay, so 30 looks great to me. So once we have that, what we're gonna do is go to effects and apply another distort diffuse glow again, so to get more of that graininess. So yeah, now this is what we should have. So let me try to see how it looks with multiply. Okay, now scratch that. We're just gonna stick to normal for this one, but we're gonna use multiply for the other one. So once we have that, the next thing that we need is the iris for our eyeball. So let's create that. So I'll make it around 292 pixels, maybe 292. Once that's done, I'm going to change it to a fill color, and then just assign it, like align it somewhere, maybe to the center for now, because it doesn't matter when we are animating this, we're going to change it. So, and it's gonna have the color black, and then the next thing, as you know, we're gonna do is apply the effect again, distort, diffuse glow, and then apply. So that looks great. Maybe the blue, I'll try to dim it a bit so the opacity doesn't look that much. So yeah, okay, that looks great to me. So once all of these are done, I'm going to remove all my colors over here because I do not need the color palette anymore. We're ready to go and animate it in After Effects. Before doing that, I'll be labeling each of these layers and transferring to each one of these so that we know which one we need to rely on After Effects. So I'm gonna send the iris over here, and then we have the eyeball and then the background. So I do not need this there. Over here, we're gonna have these effects together, as we do not want to animate these independently. And then we have the background. So I'll just change the name of this to an eyeball, and then hit save. So once this is done, we're going to start animating this in After Effects. So once we're in After Effects, we are going to come over to the projects and double tap over here to get our file that we need. Once we have the file over here, we're just going to click on the eyeball AI and then import. Before importing, you have to select it as a composition and retain layer sizes so we can maintain the same sizes for all the layers. So I'll be importing it as a composition, not as a footage, so that we can retain all the layers as well. So after that, click import. So once we have the composition ready, I'm going to just click on it and see that we have 3 layers over here: the iris, the eyeball, and the background. So we won't be messing with the background, therefore I'm gonna just lock it, as we do not need to play around with it. So the next thing that I'll be doing is I'll start animating the eye and the iris. So first of all, I'll start with the iris. At first, I'll switch the modes so that I can get the motion blur. So make sure you have the motion blur on for the iris and as well as the eyeball. And I'll also set the frame rate to 60 FPS because I like the animation smooth. So I'll just be setting it to 60. That's okay. Once that is done, what we're gonna do is start animating the iris. So in order for us to animate the iris, we're gonna just mess around with the position of the iris. The anchor point is fine. It has to be in the center as it should. So now let's start animating the iris. Over here we have the position and we are just going to work with the positions for the iris. So at first we will be activating the keyframe for the position, and then we're gonna set a new keyframe maybe around 640, I suppose 640, and over there I'll be setting it to 706 maybe, so go a bit outside of the eyeball. We're gonna fix that later so that the iris remains inside the eyeball, so that's fine. So after that we are gonna go to each animation is gonna like happen for like 1 second, so every motion is gonna take 1 second to happen. So we're gonna come to 1 second initially, and then we're gonna set a new keyframe and then set this position to maybe around, let's play around with it a bit, this top side around 668, no, maybe around 688, and then we'll have it around 500. That's fine. So after that there's gonna be a pause so that the iris remains there for a while and then starts running again. So for that we're gonna take around here 12 frames, and over here we're gonna keep it the same keyframe, so hence we're gonna add a keyframe over here and not change it. Then for the next motion we're gonna go to exactly at 212, since I want it to be 1 second for each of the motions, and then we're gonna set the new position to maybe around 273. And then for the y-axis we're going to set it around 359 maybe, so it's all the way at the top, and then from there we're gonna go to 3, and then at 3 we're gonna apply the same keyframe, so it's gonna be there for a while before traveling again. So we're gonna start the next keyframe at 4. So from 3 to 4, 1 second, they're gonna travel again. So let's add the keyframe and change its value to around 369. And for the y-axis, we're gonna set it to 610. So once we have it here, we are gonna go to 412 for a pause again, and then add a keyframe. So we are not gonna play with this position, we're gonna keep it the same as it is, and then go to 512 to add the next keyframe and then play around with it. So for this one I'll set around 602 maybe, so 2, and then for the y-axis I'll go with 409. So once we have it over there, as you can see that it's jumping from one side to the other. Around here we're going to see that it's around 602. After that we are going to go to 612 for the pause again, and then add a keyframe. So once we add a keyframe over here again, this is gonna be for the pausing motion, and then we're gonna start the motion again from 7. So this time it's gonna start a bit early. And then over here from 7, we're gonna set the position to maybe around 508 and 494. So technically kind of in the center. So as you can see that it's going all the way, and then it's gonna look at us, and then we are going to return it back to the previous point so that we can have a nice loop going on over there. So we're going to first go to 8 and put another keyframe so that it's here for 1 second, and then around 9 we are going to set a new keyframe, which is going to be 640 and 706, which is our previous first position. So it's going to return back to that position so that we can have a nice motion going on. And we are also going to set it until 9 or 12 over here, 0, 9, 12, and then we're going to add a keyframe for that to just stay there for a while. So as you can see that if you play the animation now, it looks something like this. It looks nice as it's moving from one place to another, but it's very linear. So we need to work on making it look more realistic at the same time, not look so boring. So for doing that, at first we are going to select all of our keyframes, and then we are going to add keyframe assistant and go add easy ease. So what that's going to do is basically add a graph. If you go to the graph editor, see that we have graphs with a curve like that. So everything has like a speed over here, the maximum speed, and then it drops, goes up with the high speed, and then goes down. So in order for us to make it a bit more smoother, what we're gonna do is we're gonna select individually these, and then we're trying to make it a bit more peak like that. So in this way, we'll have a very maximum speed over here, and initially it'll start slow and then hit the speed and then decrease again in the same manner. I'm gonna do it for all and see how it looks. So let's try this. Maybe the same over here. So once that is done, let's have a look at our new eyeball. As you can see that it looks way better now, like, because it feels like an iris moving inside an eyeball with that speed. So it at first slowly goes up, and then with the maximum speed it reaches this point, and then again goes back there. So stuff like that. But it still looks linear because we know that an eyeball doesn't move straight all the time. It has it moves in a curve, so it looks a bit robotic. So in order for us to fix that, if we click on this layer, we can see that there are some points that are set for our position, so we can mess around with those. So in order for us to mess around with those, we're just gonna select these boxes, and we can see that we have a handle for this line over here, and we can change it. So changing it would change the track of the position it's changing at, so it won't be linear like this. Instead, it'll have a little curve while it's going. So let me demonstrate it to you. So instead of going linearly, it'll just go in a curved manner. So I'll be doing it for all of these. I'm gonna come to this one, maybe put it here, and just this is something you need to play around with to understand that how it'll look nice like that. And that's about it. So let's take a look at how it looks. So as we can see that it looks pretty cool, better than before. It looks more realistic as an eyeball would move. So we'd want to have something like that. But for the speed, I feel like it's having a very big hard break. So I'll just decrease this graphs a bit to make sure that it's not that hard. something like that. Great. Now let's see what it looks like. So this looks way better than before because the speed, it's not like a hard break right now. It's going there and then going back. Pretty cool. One more thing I'd like to check is if I set the curve for this part. I do not know why it's gonna crash. I feel like my After Effects is gonna crash. Just bear with me if it crashes. So let's see how the animation looks like now. Goes over here, back to the center, and then back here. So yeah, that looks great. Now we're gonna work on the eyeball. What we're gonna do is we're gonna follow the same motion as timing as the iris over here. So both the eyeball and iris, they're gonna move at the same time. So we're gonna go to the eyeball, same way to the position. And we're gonna set the first position to where it is, as it is, and from there we're gonna go to the first motion over here, and then we're gonna change it to around 522, and then 494. So it goes a bit to the upwards and to the right side. And over here we're gonna apply the same keyframe and come over here. As it moves, we are gonna set another keyframe about 446 maybe, with another y-axis keyframe of 500. So this is basically just moving to the left side and going down a bit, and then we're gonna have another static keyframe over here. For the next motion, we're gonna have a keyframe with a value of maybe around 500, and maybe over here 520, so it goes a bit down, follows the iris, and then we're gonna set the static motion over here. In the same way, you're gonna go back here and then set a new position. So you guys can feel free to play around with these, as these are just a set motion by me, which I feel like I wanted to keep. So yeah, once I'm here, I'm gonna go with there again and put the static keyframe, then move to my keyframe over here, and we're gonna set this to static. Okay, great. So we're gonna come here and make it around. Okay, we're gonna center it again as it is supposed to be centered. 500, 500. As we have the iris in the center as well, we're gonna keep it there. Just as it is, we're gonna add another keyframe. So over here, we won't be having any more motions, as we wanted the eyeball to be just there. So let's have a look at it with the eyeball now. Animate it. So it looks way fancier with the eyeball moving along with the iris. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to do the same things like we did for the keyframes for the iris. For the eyeball, at first we're gonna select all of the keyframes and then right click on it, go keyframe assistance and easy ease them, and then go to the graphs, follow the same technique for the graphs over here, make the curves and have the speed maximum like that, but not go too much. So once that is done, we're gonna see the motion of the eyeball. It looks much more smoother and better. So with this, now we're also going to work on the keyframe of the eyeball. So I'll just zoom in a bit using my mouse to scroll. So once we're here, we're just going to play around with these points again and set their handles so that they're also not linear. And voila, this is my masterpiece that I've created. And let's check it out. Alright, that looks great. So now in order for us to loop it, we're just gonna use the time limit and put it over here as this frame ends, and then play it again to see if the loop is working as it's supposed to. And goes back, and then goes back up. Great. Now the next thing that we need to work on is basically the iris being inside the eyeball at all times. So for that, what we're gonna do is basically duplicate this eyeball. The reason that I didn't do this before is because we want the motion to be there as well, and then bring it above the iris layer, and then we're gonna toggle the mode, switch it to this mode where we can select the alpha matte, alpha inverted and stuff. So over here we're gonna choose iris. I'm gonna set the alpha matte over here, as you can see, to alpha matte eyeball, and then we're gonna play the animation. So as we can see that it's still visible over here at this spot. I think it would be better for us to get the circle layer as well for it. So I'll just grab the circle layer from the Illustrator file. So in order for us to make the eyeball solid and not go out of this eyeball, we have to separate the eyeball and its effects, and we're gonna bring it separately. So for me, I have already went to the Illustrator file and created another layer for the eyeball and the effects. So this is the effects and this is the eyeball. So we're gonna use this instead. So we're just gonna copy the eyeball for effects and then bring it to this composition over here, and then we're gonna parent it up with the eyeball from before so that when it moves, it also moves with that. So with that done, we can see that we have achieved the iris being inside the eyeball all the time. The next thing that we want to do is we want to add a bit of reflection going around to make it look nice. So we're gonna use an ellipse tool over here, and then create an ellipse, make it wide, and I guess the size is fine for now. So we're gonna play around with it. I'm gonna use a Gaussian blur on it, and then increase the blur around that. Maybe make it a bit bigger so it's more visible. Set it around somewhere around here, and this should be on top at all times. So let's see how it looks with that as well. So since the movements are more to the bit more down, I'm gonna bring it a bit more down so that it's visible most of the time. Let's see how it looks now. Okay, that looks great. Hope you liked this video and learned something new. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Tschüss!